section, we would focus on the concept of Nari Shakti, which is part of your Yojana 2021 edition for September. So various concepts, for example, femicide, where killing of people based on gender has been witnessed. There have been experiences where 1 out of every 3 women have experienced some form of violence in their life. The kind of violence have been mentioned here, and the percentage of crime against women, how they have been rising, have been again mentioned. Now, what are mainly the issues? The first major issue is the family institution and domestic violence, where only 1% of the women actually report the instances. Then how do we counter it? So countering is through Dowry Prohibition Act. We also have the prenatal tests, which are the preconception and the prenatal diagnostic tests. Also, India has been ranked 142 among the 193 nations in terms of percentage of women in parliament. Our representation in PSUs and Maharatna is very less for females. So there has been suggestions to include females in the desk for hiring purpose in order to increase the number of female representation across various sections. Then various hygiene issues and problems related to hygiene have been addressed. Koi tribe, Daringbadi in Odisha, has been working with an movement which is Break the Silence meeting, Chuppi Todo Bethak, which is basically focusing on women talking about various kinds of hygiene issues and various consumables being developed from sal leaves. Goonj is an NGO focusing on the similar effort, and MYPAD is an initiative through them. Then we have the various developments which have been seen as Shakti Shalini, which is an NGO that supports any kind of gender violence. And we have also seen that be it toys, be it pulses, any kind of production activity, manufacturing activity, the role of women have been indispensable. There have been a huge participation. So Shakti Shalini has been working greatly for bringing in equality and parity. So gender equality is one of the major things that have been focused on, mainly providing shelter homes, protection, guidance and support, and regular counseling services. Empowerment again through various means. This could be either through the self-help groups led women empowerment, similar to what has been developed by Professor Yunus Grameen Bank model. And then we have the NRLM scheme, which is the National Rural Livelihood Mission scheme, which has been implemented since 2011. The focus is to focus mainly on the self-help groups across various states and bring in more development. Now, what has been the element? It's focusing on loans, educations, more opportunities, entitlement schemes, health, nutrition, sanitation, repayment of loans, active involvement in Panchayati Raj, and identify the various aspects through which women can actually work. So if they want to start themselves as an entrepreneur, there would be risk, there would be problems with competency and creative opportunism that should be addressed. So there has to be development across various levels. So there has to be a cluster level federation followed by village level and self-help groups, where we have nearly 10 to 20 women coming together. Now these women together would form a village organizations, these 10 to 20 self-help groups, and finally they would have many such village groups would form the cluster level federations. So these cluster level federations would bring in financial, social economy and empowerment for an individual. They would help in generate employment, community leadership, bring in more resources, and bring in training and awareness programs. So there are stepwise guidelines how this can actually work if you want to bring in financial inclusion. Firstly, there has to be an internal lending followed by opening of an account. Then there would be revolving funds, microcredit plan, and finally the bank credit, which is the second stage of the loan, and the third stage, which is around 36 to 40 months. So the 4 strong pillars where we say social self-help groups can mobilize is social mobilization, sustainable institutions, financial inclusion and livelihood. So focusing on these becomes important, and for this there would be increasing household incomes and betterment. Now toy industry is one of the major industries. Since the time of Harappa, we have the kite site of Indus Valley, which is where we had the terracotta toys which were practiced. Numerous female workforce was employed then and is also employed now. Villacheri is a clay toy which is divided between, the manufacturing is divided between men and women. In Assam, cloth dolls are being manufactured. Similarly, we have artists from Goa manufacturing things from wood, cotton, coir, wooden toys coming from Uttar Pradesh, Varanasi, Mirzapur. The Kopal district is the first toy manufacturing cluster which has been recognized, and there are numerous employment opportunities. Nearly 30,000 people have been employed there for toy manufacturing, and this is known as vocal for local. But 90% of this toy market is unorganized. We have only 75% of the manufacturing that comes from micro industries. The rest comes from MSMEs. So larger units which have just less than 3% of the representation have a significant account of the total toys in the market. So Toyathon was launched, which is basically an expert development where startups manufacturing toys, games based on Indian cultures and ethos have been introduced. The concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat has been worked on. And then women's role in MSMEs. So what are the revised MSMEs plan? The micro, small, medium enterprise, which is less than 5 crore, up to 50 crores and up to 250 crores is the criteria. Women entrepreneurship platforms have been developed, and these focus on understanding the role of women across various positions, the executive position, the managerial position, decision making. And women entrepreneur platform has been one of the free of cost platforms where women can join in, and the viability funds can be obtained from Ministry of Development, specifically for the Northeast region. The next is the screening for breast cancer, and there has been a wearable device devised by Dr. A. Seema from Center for Materials for Electronic Technology, and this is based on graphene. Now graphene based superconductors are one of the technologies she has developed. She has also received the Nari Shakti Puraskar in 2018, which is the highest civilian honor for women in India by the President of India. And this would be a low cost device which would be easy to use and would not have the problems which were faced by mammography. It could be easily operated and work best with dense tissues as well. Women have been playing an important role in sports, and there have been increasing performance upgradation which has been witnessed with lots of motivation, persistence and dedication. PV Sindhu created history by winning bronze against China in 2020 badminton event. Aditi Ashok was the first woman to represent Olympics for twice in golf competition, and she is registered as highest ever finish for India at the Olympics. Now Fit Run India 2.0 was started as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Numerous people joined this initiative, and the idea was at least 30 minutes of their life should be spent to physical activity. Fitness ki dose aadha ghante roz was the slogan which was given. The next is women in uniform. So there were three generations that we talk about: baby boomers, generation Xers and millennials. Baby boomers were born in 40s and 50s, and they were brought up with the best career options for marriage and motherhood, and they basically were the generation who ventured to build the careers. X generations born in 60s to 70s, and they were the transitional generations. It was mainly a male dominated career entries, and non-traditional jobs were coming into effect since then. And those born between 80s to 90s were the millennials, who were much more open-minded. They rejected the rigid traditional setup, and they were well-adjusted individuals devoid of the prejudices specifically against the gender. Now we focus on civil services. Now civil services has been one of the major developments, and Vallabhbhai Patel called civil services in India as the steel framework of India. Article 312 incorporated under the Constituent Assembly talks about all India service and the recruitment based on the competitive exam. So capacity building is important. Now there have have been some of the important roles of the civil servants, as we have seen. The functions of the capacity building commission are again important. We have Mission Karma Yogi, which talks about use of technology and digital means to develop good developmental opportunities, infrastructure and content for a world-class level e-learning platform has been taken into account. Then we have the special purpose vehicles and the benefits for common men, which have been propounded through this development of Mission Karma Yogi. Aarambh Initiative is where all the probationary officers from Group A, Foreign Services, All India Services come together for a common foundation course, and there is 2-year induction program. The first 4 months is the training, the common foundation course, which is mainly for the officers trainees, and then we have the idea that they would have the domain knowledge across various subdivisional project officer, district rural development agencies and so on. So at the LBS NAA the training is given, and then this phase 1 training talks about the winter study tour, which is around 6 weeks, and Bharat Darshan is organized. This is the exposure to India through various agencies and institutions, and to develop a pan-India perspective to understand the role of IAS and their governance. So it includes various wings as well: defense, law and order, insurgency, local bodies, infrastructure and so on. Then there is a 3-month academic module where various subjects are taught. Then there is 1-year duration of state and district training in the respective departments, and this is mainly at the local level, how cooperatives, education and healthcare can work. And then we have the professional course phase 2, which is around 1.5 months academic program, and this is to reflect the knowledge which an individual has acquired in the phase 1 stage of training. Here 1 week foreign training to Singapore, South Korea or UK is done, and 1 week of officers training to parliament or on call for president, prime minister or other dignitaries is done. Then there is mid-career training programs, and this is for those who are already in the training program between 7 to 9 years, 14 to 16 years and 26 to 28 years. We have been focusing on gender justice, so Mahatma Gandhi's efforts and redistributive justice and participative governance has been given emphasis. The 5th National Family Health Survey, the assessments of those, the empowerment of women, the parameters for those have been taken into account, and the developments of women as per the National Family Health Survey has been discussed. The various dimensions through which the holistic approach for capability expansion is discussed is mentioned here. Now the next important thing that we understand is the movement of the Palyakars. The movement of the Palyakars and the development have been again important. There have been the various movements which have been attached to our independence reform, and the sequential development of the Palyakars is given. The role of Palyakars and the third Palyakar movement is very important in relation to the independence movement, and how the zamindari system was introduced after the end of the Palyakar system, the spies, how they worked, and the protests that were held across various parts of the country. The next is the National Convention for the Right of the Child. This was adopted with 54 articles and through 196 countries to set out the civil, political, economic and cultural rights of every child, and the ratification was done. Then we have the climate change, the implications of the climate change and the policies related to same, ensuring a gender responsive child protection system. So what can be the capabilities and the developments regarding the same, and in the PSUs, as we already mentioned, how recruitment has become important. Only 5 to 9% representation is there for women, and this needs to be substantially improved through women representation, either as a member of selection committee. Precondition for obtaining the marks in the interview can be removed. Avoiding interviews and selection based on only test scores, and lateral hiring is again important. We are also making efforts for reaching for long-term perspective, where 30% of the women in employment stations must be taken into account. So short-term, medium-term, long-term planning and training programs need to take place. Gender sensitization is again an important issue, and there is various internal complaint committee which are established for more than 10 employees. Wherever there is more than 10 employees, this internal complaints committee can be established, has to be established and has to be worked about. The specific policy interventions, specifically when it comes to occupational health and safety codes, must be taken into account, and one women member should be always there in all promotions. Unavailability of a suitable member, then there would be a co-opting from other department or other organization that has to be taken into account. And Women 20 or W20 is a official G20 engagement group which focuses on gender equality and the responsibility for equitable group for public and private sector performance. So those are some of the important topics that we have discussed today from the Yojana. This edition was exclusively based on Nari Shakti, women empowerment, and the handouts for the same would be available on Examrace current affairs section. A lot of the information was theoretical information, the findings from the National Family and Health Survey, those which we have not discussed, the data that we have not talked here, and would be available in the handout. So the detailed statistics, if you want to have those for your answer writing, would be available there. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions or doubts, feel free to raise those or come back to us with your questions in the comment section. We'll be more than happy to discuss your doubts and solutions. Wish you very good luck for your preparation.